YouTube, how's it going? NateGreat321 back again, and today I got a review of a really cool NES accessory that I just bought off eBay. That'd be the Aladdin Deck Enhancer. I haven't seen any reviews of this on YouTube, so I figured I'd do one. I'll give you a kind of Gamester 81 style overview of it. We'll take a look at the history of the system. I'll talk about what it means to collectors nowadays, and we'll go ahead and take a closer look at the system and hopefully some gameplay. And you will notice that yes, my copy is sealed, and yes, I am going to open it, so say what you will about that. But I'll get into that later, so let's go ahead and take a closer look at the history of the system. Alright guys, here it is, the Aladdin Deck Enhancer, released in late 1992 for the NES, published by Codemasters and produced by Camerica. Those two names should sound familiar to any of you NES players and collectors out there. They are two of the groups behind the Game Genie, and they also paired up for a number of unlicensed NES releases throughout its lifespan. Here's one right here, Fantastic Adventures of Dizzy, pretty well-reviewed, well-liked game. You'll notice that all the Camerica games are in this kind of flashy gold cart like this, and they have this A and B switch on the back. Pretty unusual looking, but then again, a lot of the unlicensed carts were. So by 1992, Camerica was looking for a way to cut costs and to get games out there for cheap, so it can compete with quality NES games that are licensed by Nintendo. So they came up with this idea, this Aladdin Deck Enhancer. And what it does basically is, if you look, I'll open the card up right here. This is a standard, this is the Dizzy card I just showed you. I open it up. This is the actual board inside of it. And you'll notice there's 4 chips inside of there. And that includes the actual game ROM, the NES lockout chip, which is important for these unlicensed games to play on the NES, since it's supposed to prevent pirated games, but obviously they found a way around that. So it includes those, the graphics chip, the memory chip. And to produce one of these carts, they would have to reproduce these over and over and over. And they thought by this time that essentially from game to game the only thing that changes is the game ROM, one of these 4 chips. And pretty much they share similar parts from game to game except that game ROM. So what they did was they came up with this Deck Enhancer, and basically what it is this part right here kind of looks like a Game Genie, and it holds 3 of the 4 chips basically. It has the lockout chip, the graphics chip, the memory chip, the things that are the same from cart to cart, so that instead of producing, those chips every time they want to make a game, all Camerica has to do is produce a game ROM over and over, which is these kind of smaller carts. These are what you'd actually buy in the stores, and they came in packages like this. This is Linus Spacehead's Cosmic Crusade. But they could sell, because they were smaller, they only contained 1 chip, they were the circuit boards were physically smaller, there was less things in it, there was, less plastic, everything was smaller. They could produce them cheaper, and that means they could sell them cheaper. So, while a typical NES game is probably about $30 to $40, maybe even cheaper at this time, a typical Aladdin game is probably only going to be between $10 to $15. So, I mean, if you're a consumer and you're buying for the NES, by this time in 1992, you're probably not spending a whole lot on the NES because it's, dying. So, a lot of people when this came out, when this debuted, media were really hyping this thing up. They really liked it. They thought it was a great idea, a way to produce cheaper games, and so a lot of people were behind it. But unfortunately, the Aladdin was just kind of a victim of bad timing. 1992, the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis were out. They were doing really well in America. And Camerica and Codemasters have had their issues with Nintendo in the past. Nintendo sued them over the Game Genie, but Camerica and Codemasters won that. Nonetheless, they had some legal troubles in the U.S., so a lot of their push for this system was in Canada, and they shipped a lot of their initial systems there. Did fairly well, pretty respectable, but I think they went bankrupt or something like that, so it was pretty bad for them. It didn't last very long. They planned on having a bunch of games for this, it had a lot of promise, but in the end, it was just really a victim of bad timing. So let's go ahead and take a look at the box here. You can see, yeah, it comes packed in with Dizzy the Adventurer. And there is the actual Aladdin, and we'll take a look at that in a second. And let's go ahead and look at the back, and you can see it's got a little thing about Dizzy the Adventure here. It shows you how you plug in the actual kind of mini carts into this Game Genie looking thing. And it shows you right here 6 games available now, and it has a preview of 8, 9, 10, 11 games right here that are coming soon. None of those games actually saw the light of day. These 6 plus the pack-in games were the only ones ever released for the system. So there aren't very many games out there for it. It only lasted about a year, I think. So what this means for collectors now I mean, they're not rare per se. You'll find a decent amount of them on eBay. They're still going to be probably between $50 to $100 depending on what games it comes with. But mine is sealed, and that's actually not out of the ordinary. That is to be expected, honestly, because most of the Aladdins that are out there now were unsold. Not a lot of people bought them. So most of the people selling them now are people who bought, boxes of them, I guess wholesale or whatever you want to call it, from like stores. They have actual like cardboard boxes full of 20 of these like they would give to a game store back in the day. So to find one of these on eBay isn't too hard. You'll most likely find it sealed. It'd be anywhere from $50 to $100. I got a decent deal. I got this plus 2 games. I got Linus and Big Nose Freaks Out. Both of these, the cardboard part on the inside is sealed, but the actual outside of the game is not. I don't really care. I'm going to open it anyway. So I guess that's about it for the box and the history and overview of the system. So let's go ahead and crack this bad boy open and take a look at the actual system. Alright guys, here we go. We got the Aladdin opened. The collector in me shuddered a little bit when I took off the plastic wrap, but I bought this and didn't intend on keeping it sealed, and typically I don't collect for value anyway. I collect to play games, really, so I don't mind opening it too much, but do the box aside and show you what it comes with. Pretty simple and sweet. It comes with the actual Aladdin right here and the Dizzy game. It also comes with these fold-out instructions. It's pretty self-explanatory, but it comes with it anyway. It even explains how it works, the different chips and stuff, and why they decided to do this. So that's kind of interesting that they'd bother including that. The interesting thing too about the games is they don't come with real manuals, but they're fold-out posters that kind of explain controls down here, and it's got a little story there. And they're full color, pretty interesting. It's a pretty unique way of doing things, and it's got ads for other games. It's got a Codemasters helpline on there. Micro Machines, that's a pretty popular game. Most of these games were just parts from full-size, like gold cart Camerica games that they had before, Micro Machines, things like that. So they would add a thing here or there to make these ones, these Aladdin releases, a little different. But for the most part, they're pretty much straight ports of the full-size gold cart releases. So it came with those two. It also came with, obviously, the warranty registration card. So this is the Aladdin right here. And you probably can't see it, but in there's a switch like it has on the full-size gold cards, an A and B switch. And yeah, it's pretty boring, I guess, right there. Not much to it. But let's go ahead and get the game out here. And this is what a typical Aladdin game would look like just by itself. And for comparison, here is an NES cart. So you can see that this is roughly half the size, maybe a little less than a typical NES cart. But when you go ahead and plug it in the system, you can see there's pins in there correspond to these. So you just push that in, clicks in, and then that is about the size of a standard NES cart, obviously, if they both go into the NES. A little different, couple extra like angles and stuff on it. For the most part, pretty much a standard NES cart. So, pretty cool system we got there. And we'll go ahead and set this up for a little bit of game. Alright guys, so we got my NES over here, and let's go ahead and load it in with Dizzy the Adventurer in the Aladdin Deck Enhancer. See how much this enhances my deck. So it takes a second to turn on there as it's bypassing the NES 10 chip. Pretty cool voice on there. You don't hear that every day on an NES cart. But this, again, was a late NES cart. And, yep, so this game is pretty much an adventure game, as suggested by the title, Dizzy the Adventurer. And you can see you start off in this first area with 3 items, a pile of straw, a match, and a bucket of water. So you lay the straw by the door, set it on fire, and then you put it out with the bucket of water. And there you go, now you can go out and explore. The game is based on finding items and figuring out how to use them in the world. It's people need certain things, so you give it to them and they give you items in return. Pretty straightforward adventure game, but nonetheless pretty interesting. I've heard it's pretty short, but obviously I haven't gotten all the way through it. The one negative thing I notice about it is a lot of times when you make jumps when you're running, or if it's jumps from a high platform, you roll. so that can sort of throw off the platform if you're trying to land on a specific spot. But other than that, decent, interesting game. So let's go ahead and we'll unload that. Let's see. We'll switch it out with one of the other games I bought. Once I can find it here, we'll do Big Nose Freaks Out. So you can see Big Nose came in a smaller case, just the game. It comes with a poster type manual like the other game did. I didn't open the Linus game yet. We'll do that momentarily. I probably won't show gameplay for it, but so here's what a game would look like if you just buy it. Easy, you just kind of pop Dizzy out, put Big Nose in, and there you go. Let's load that up. And that loads. This game kind of reminds me of Adventure Island. Not much to it. It's actually pretty simple. Just platforming, basically. You're collecting bones, which are like the collectible item, and enemies and stuff like that. You can get these that upgrade your shot, kind of like Adventure Island does. So, pretty straightforward game. Kind of strange, there's no background music to it. It's kind of weird. Pretty, pretty simple game. Not awful. If you would have bought it for, half the price of an NES game back in the day, I guess, I don't know if you'd expect much more than this. Decent, but whatever. So that's pretty much the deck enhancer right there. A interesting NES accessory. Got some okay games on it, I guess, but I'd be looking into getting Micro Machines because I know that's the most popular one, so see if I can't grab that sometime soon. And I guess thanks for watching, guys, and for now, this is Nacrit321 signing out.